Devil You Know is done.
D-U-N. Done.
That's in the past now. They've moved on.
And lit the torch.
They were forced to change their name last year to Light the Torch because of legal problems with their former drummer. So instead of dealing with all that bullshit, they said, you know what? We don't want to pay a member, a former member, any royalties or anything like that if he's not contributing to the
especially when they're not going to make any money off this to begin with.
Well, I mean, hardly, just because of the way the industry is.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But they said no to that. They said, let's just change the name. Let's have a fresh start here. Light the Torch is put out there. I'm going to call this their first album. So they put out 2 albums under Devil You Know, but this is the first album. If you change the name of your band, you're starting over.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. Until this is their first album, they'll put out another album, and then somebody else will leave and they'll have to change the name again.
You think it'll happen a second time?
Never know.
An appropriate name for their first album, too. Revival. That's definitely a nice title, and it speaks for what the album... the message of the album is going to be. Our first taste of the album was Die Alone, which was earlier in the year. And my thoughts of it at first were, I said, this is solid, but you hear the change in the sound, like right away. So that change in sound made me a little skeptical at first, because I said, wait a minute, this does not sound like Devil You Know at all. But I thought in my head, I said, you know what? They changed the name of their band. I said a change in sound should be more acceptable.
The second track, The God I Deserve, was
holy vocal performance. Howard sounds great.
No, I don't think there's a bad song unless he doesn't, sound bad on.
Even Ryan, the bass player, his harmonizing vocals behind Howard, even his are really, really good.
It was track 3 that was the first one I heard. I don't know if that was the first single you heard. Calm Before the Storm.
Yeah, that was the second single here. Well, the first time I heard that, all of my doubt about this album not being too great went away. I said this, with the way that this song sounds, I said, I think this will be a really strong album after all.
It follows right into Raise the Dead.
Raise the Dead, that's a really, another really solid song there. A lot of energy in these songs. Like Calm Before the Storm, you get that energy going in there. And then Raise the Dead, you get more of those harmonizing vocals between Howard and Ryan. It's like the vocals in this are just extremely well done. And then you can't rule out Francesco's guitar work on this album too.
No.
He's a great guitarist.
The guitar work is good. The bass is a little in the back, but it's still noticeable.
Even the new drummer Mike, he's not bad either. Safety of Disbelief, that's a really interesting one, and I see why that has been the fan favorite so far from what I've read. People are really gravitating towards that one. I think people can really relate to it lyrically. Virus is the one where it really starts to have those hints of Devil You Know, like a lot more than the songs before that. Halfway into this album and you're looking for those hints of the old sound, you really get that one with Virus. The Great Divide is the one where it slows down a lot more.
Yeah, that's where you notice there was a whole tempo change in the album, because the whole album is pretty much, up until this point, is pretty much in your face and straightforward.
That's definitely the ballad of the album, and I think it's very well done.
Might be probably my favorite song on the album, not gonna lie.
The Bitter End, it goes right into the heavy.
Yeah, they don't cut anything from this album when it comes to heaviness. They put the Great Divide in there as the dividing track.
Yeah.
And then they decided
I didn't even think of that. It's a good analogy.
Let's go balls to the wall in between that.
I think they really nailed the sound that they were trying to go for with this. Like, they say that was not their intent to have that change in sound. It just happened naturally. Well, whatever they did naturally, they nailed it. Lost in the Fire, that's the longest song on the album, and that's really, for me, that was one of the weaker tracks.
Yeah, I think that was one of the ones where I started losing a little bit of interest.
Yeah, that's to the point of the album where it loses its steam a little bit. Because I think every song sounds different. None of these sound the same. You can only do so much with this kind of metalcore.
There's not too much straying from, what you're doing here. I mean, you can, but...
But then the next song, it grabs your interest right back, because the Sound of Violence is straight up Devil You Know. There's not a single clean part in that song. That's all aggressive, angry Howard there.
Yeah, I've noticed most of the album is a lot more clean than there is screaming.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a melodic approach to what they had been doing before, and I think it all leads back to that change in the band name.
Yeah.
You know,
just relighting that torch.
Pull My Heart Out it kind of goes right back into that weaker side of the album a little bit. It's one of the very few songs that doesn't have that catchy chorus behind it. Yeah. You get a lot of those songs where it really has those choruses that you can like want to sing along to and like stuff like that. But that's one of the ones that doesn't. And I think that was one of the strong points of the album, was Howard having those really powerful vocals behind these songs, and with Ryan like harmonizing right behind him. But with the songs that didn't have that, it was a lot weaker performance. The last song, Judas Convention.
Now this is the one you pointed out. Some interesting.
A name change for the band, but they ended the album on a very familiar note. They ended this album almost very similar on the last two Devil You Know albums. With this one, listening to it lyrically, I was wondering to myself, who's this directed towards? Because the way Howard ends albums lyrically, he ends them on a really, really mysterious note. They always get you thinking, like with every album that he's been on pretty much. Getting into the lyrics more, and it isn't until the final lyrics of the album, I said, this is a shot at their former drummer. I said, if you cannot convince me otherwise that this is not a stab at the old drummer.
No.
With the lawsuit that they had to deal with and everything like that, having to change the name just because he wanted to keep part of it, because he was one of the founding members. So, I mean, everybody thought that they were friends, but they ended up groveling over money.
Small things.
Another, apparent reason is Judas. Judas, that's the name of, a backstabber.
Yeah.
So I really think that's a take at him. This is the album that I had been looking forward to the most for 2018. It's finally here. We've heard it. We've reviewed it. Now we get into the question of whether we find this album not worthy, or is it realm worthy? We might have a different opinion on this one here.
So, do you want to go with yours first?
I think it's realm worthy. I love this album. I think it's extremely well done. It's the best album I've heard of 2018 so far.
So for me, we just heard this album this morning. I listened to it twice in a row. For me, the album is worthy. However, in listening to this album, there was not one point in this album. It's well written. Howard's voice always just grabs you. It doesn't matter. Like you said to me, he could be singing country, or he could be doing scat music.
Yeah, and it'd still be good.
It'd be great. But there was not one time while I listened to this album that I just wanted to turn it off. I put it on and I drove, and it was great driving. It was great to listen to. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's worthy. I think over the next couple of weeks, I'm definitely going to be listening to it more. A lot of notable tracks on there. Some I'd say might be comparable to his Kill Switch Engage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's okay, but I'd say it's worthy.
And then there's that age-old question that we have to ask ourselves with every review going forward, and since it's 2018, the question has to be asked now. Does it dadcore? And by definition, dadcore is the guys that always debate between who is the better vocalist of Killswitch Engage, Howard Jones or Jesse Leach. The ones that can't just simply say, you know what, both vocalists are pretty damn good at what they do. Let's just agree to disagree that they were both good in the band.
That actually sounds like a dadcore moment.
That is exactly what a dadcore moment is.
I'd say no.
Absolutely does not.
If they had a different vocalist, it might tread a little bit, not knocking the other members, but because of, again, I'm going to put Howard out there. Howard is not your everyday average metalcore vocalist.
No. Oh yeah, if this was a different vocalist on there, I might not even know about this.
Yeah, if it was the guy from All That Remains, or, maybe the singer from Shadows Fall. Not knocking those guys' talents either.
It wouldn't have that much notoriety behind it, but because it's Howard, because of what he did for the genre, I want to listen to this. I want to be excited about this. And of course, I think it's going to be really good.
Definitely check it out, guys. Let us know what you think.
You could say that they were lighting the torch with this revival.